All right, good evening, everyone. So, we're having some speaker issues today. I see some familiar faces from previous public hearings, and there's always going to be a technical issue. I'm going to do my best, and I hope that you'll bear with me. We have a speaker fix coming from another location. I'm not sure when it's going to get here. Hello to the location, the extra location. We're going to get to you folks in a minute. I hope you can see and hear me okay, and folks will let me know if you can't. Okay, so we're here tonight for a public comment hearing in Maryland Public Service Commission case number 9748, which is the BGE Brandon Shores project. My name is Jennifer Grace. I'm the public utility law judge. I'm the one who's going to be writing the proposed order in this case. Next to me is the VIP of this room. This is the court reporter, and he needs to get everything that we say in one of these microphones, there's microphones everywhere up here, because that gets transcribed into words on a page, and that's what can be considered in this case. So I'm going to ask for your help to get that done. I need silence in this room. Now, so that means no clapping, no booing, no stomping, that type of thing. But look, I saw some of you guys had signs. Holding up a sign, that is A-okay, okay? Because that's quiet. So I encourage you to do that if that's what you want to do tonight. All right, I'm happy to announce that next to me is Baltimore County Councilman David Marks. And I'm gonna, oh no, we just said no clapping. How about thumbs up? There you go. Okay, I'm gonna tell folks how it's gonna go here and kind of do a little introduction, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Councilman Marks. So, some folks are here because you want to learn more about what's happening. I have representatives from all of the parties to the case. Well, one is on his way, but I have representatives from the parties in the case, and I am going to start the meeting off by introducing them. I'm going to ask them to give a presentation as to who they are, who they represent, what their position is in this matter, and that's the first portion where we give information to the public. The second portion is where we're going to get information from the public. And for that, I have sign-in sheets. There were sign-in sheets outside. You didn't have to sign in if you didn't want to. You didn't have to put all your information. But hopefully, if you wanted to speak, you clearly wrote your name. Blanket apology if I say your name wrong. And check the box for yes if you wanted to speak, because I'm going to call those names out. The sign-in sheets are still out there if you change your mind. Also on that table out there is this. It's a fact sheet from PPRP, which is one of the parties in this case. And it gives some very detailed information about the application. So why are we here? We're here because Baltimore Gas and Electric Company, BGE, in July of 2024, filed an application for a CPCN, a Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity, a CPCN, to modify and construct overhead transmission lines in Hartford, Anne Arundel, and Baltimore County. We've had 2 public hearings already. I see some familiar faces in the other 2 counties, and we're here tonight in both locations so that we can hear from the public in Baltimore County. According to BGE, the work is needed to resolve widespread, severe thermal and voltage violations that grid operator PJM Interconnection LLC has identified will result from the announced planned retirement of Talon Energy's coal-fired Brandon Shores Generating Station, Units 1 and 2 in Anne Arundel County. According to the application, which is under review by the Public Service Commission, the work includes 1, upgrading an existing 230 kilovolt overhead transmission line to a 500 kilovolt overhead transmission line, extending from the Maryland-Pennsylvania border southwest to BGE's Grayston substation in Hartford County. Second, the connection of an existing 500 kilovolt overhead transmission line and modification of the terminal of an existing 230 kilovolt line to the Grayston substation. 3, I have 5, we're on 3. 3, constructing a new 230 kilovolt overhead transmission line on existing BGE right-of-way from BGE's Grayston substation south-southwest to a new Batavia substation in Baltimore County. 4, reconductoring an existing 230 kilovolt overhead transmission line from the new Batavia substation south to BGE's existing Riverside substation in Baltimore County, and the installation of overhead transmission lines to connect to the new Batavia substation. And finally, 5, installing overhead transmission line connections for a new Sully Road substation in Anne Arundel County. BGE notes in its filing that all project segments will utilize its existing rights-of-way or easements to the extent possible. So, thank you for taking time out of your busy lives to come down here today. The Maryland Public Service Commission wants to hear from people who are affected by projects, local people. I want to hear from you, and the parties want to hear from you. The parties are also listening tonight and, making adjustments to their positions based on what you say. Nobody's going to ask you questions or cross-examine you tonight, despite the fact that a bunch of suits are going to come up here in the beginning. Nobody's going to ask anybody questions tonight. That's not what kind of hearing this is. This is the kind of hearing where we hear from you, so you can say anything you want. Now, there's a lot of folks here, so I have a timer. We're limiting to about 2 minutes, but let me tell you, 2 minutes is a long time, and at previous hearings, no one's gone over 2 minutes. So if you don't want to give public comment, there is the opportunity for written public comment. I know this kind of room can be intimidating. This is the Maryland Public Service Commission website, psc.state.md.us. Thank you. That's the website. That's the first page. If you want information about this case, remember it's 9748. You click here and you type in that number. And all of the filings in this case are there for you to look at. If you want to make a public comment or read what other public comments have been made, and there have been a bunch, make a public comment is here, search public comments is here. So there's ample opportunity to make public comment even if you don't want to say something here tonight. So far in this case, the application was filed in July. The parties filed direct testimony on March 14th. The way the Public Service Commission works is first, there's different rounds of written testimony that's pre-filed so everyone can take a look at it and see what everyone else has to say. There's a status update due on May 9th. Then there's another round of written testimony, rebuttal, due on May 16th. Another round on June 13th. And then we have this case set for 4 days of evidentiary hearings in Baltimore. That's June 30th, July 1st, July 2nd, and July 3rd. A final decision for this matter is targeted towards the end of October, barring any changes to the procedural schedule. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Councilman Marks.
Thank you very much, Judge Grace. I'm up here as a representative of the local government, and I'd like to begin by thanking the many residents and property owners of the community who are here tonight, as well as thanking White Marsh Volunteer Fire Company and Columbus Gardens for their hospitality. Make no mistake, the Brandon Shores Retirement Mitigation Project is being advanced thanks to flawed state and federal policies that have closed traditional power plants without realistic alternative plans to provide energy for Maryland's growing population. Those debates continue in Washington and Annapolis, but I'd like to acknowledge my partners, Senator Jennings and Delegates Naraki and Shalega, for highlighting ways that we could move forward without closing the Brandon Shores plant. Last July, the Baltimore County Council passed Resolution 3724 that called for, and I quote, BGE to lessen the impacts of the Brandon Shores Retirement Mitigation Project on affected communities and residential neighborhoods to the greatest extent possible, and to bury transmission lines underground where feasible, especially in parkland and in rural areas that could act as wildlife corridors, particularly those that lack public water to extinguish potential fires," end quote. The vote was bipartisan and unanimous. Since that time, over the past 10 months, the advocates of this project have not taken concrete steps to meet the spirit or letter of that resolution. Studying options and having conversations, while appreciated, is simply not enough. I've worked collegially with many of these advocates on other projects, and candidly, I'm shocked that there seems to be no way to even meet the affected neighborhoods halfway in a spirit of compromise. PJM is proposing a 350-mile transmission project that will run underground, between Mason City, Iowa, and Yorkville, Illinois, avoiding visual complaints and citing disputes with property owners. That project is 10 times the distance of what is proposed here. Why can't we have the same practices, the same best practices here in Maryland? Much has been said and written about the impact of the Brandon Shores project in rural Kingsville, which is located outside the urban-rural demarcation line in an area that lacks public water, and many are concerned about the possibility of fires. But the project also stretches through many populated areas within the URL, where it is difficult for emergency vehicles to access the transmission lines. Many citizens are concerned about the health impacts of the increased power that will transmit through this infrastructure, and there are still lingering questions about real estate titling. On Monday night, the Baltimore County Council passed another unanimous bipartisan resolution urging this issue to be solved before active work begins. Today, Baltimore County Executive Kathy Clausmeyer issued a state also asking for continued dialogue to address these lingering issues. And I would like to ask all of you, very quietly, to please stand if you oppose this project in its current form. Thank you very much. I again urge the Public Service Commission to remember the importance of that first word in its title, public. There is a public interest in generating energy, but there should also be a shared commitment to safety for all those living along the transmission lines. The number of interested residents attending this and other hearings clearly shows that even if the Brandon Shores Retirement Project is approved, it must be modified with conditions that reflect ongoing concerns by the public. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to ask this doesn't help you hear me. This just helps the people at the other location hear me. Okay. I'm going to talk even louder. I'm good at that. I'm a loudmouth. That won't wreck you, will it? Okay. I told you, he's the boss. If I look at my phone, it's not because I'm not paying attention. This is how I'm communicating with folks at the other location. So if there's a problem, they're going to let me know by phone. And when there's new sign-in sheets, they're going to let me know by phone. I promise you I am paying attention, and I want to hear from you. We don't, well, 60 members of the public were allowed in this location. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to turn to the parties, starting with BGE. I'll ask the attorney for BGE to approach the podium. When the lawyers talk, you're just going to have to face this way so that you can be seen in this camera for the other, and also for recording. So when anyone speaks, you have to approach the podium and you have to face this way, because we want people in the other location to be able to hear you, and we want to make sure your voice is recorded. I'm going to ask everyone who approaches the microphone to state your first and last name and spell it for the boss. After you introduce yourself, please introduce your witness.
Thank you, Judge Grace. Thank you, Councilman Marks.
You're going to have to speak up.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Judge Grace. Thank you, Councilman Marks. And most of all, thank you to the public for coming tonight. I know it's not easy to come to one of these hearings, so we very much appreciate you taking the time and making the effort to come out and make your views known. So thank you very much. I'm going to introduce my colleague, Zach Mitchell, who is going to give you a little introduction about this project.
Good evening. My name is Zach Mitchell, and I work for Baltimore Gas and Electric. My name is spelled Z-A-C-H-A-R-Y. Last name Mitchell, M-I-T-C-H-E-L-L. First, Judge Grace, thank you for the opportunity. Councilman Marks, thank you. We have many elected officials in this room, offices represented in this room, and members of the community. I want to thank you for your time, your commitment to this time, and the partnership and dialogue on this project. Looks like we have another technical issue, so I will ask you to help me steer if that's all right. Why are we here? We all know, and if you don't, Talon Energy, which is the owner-operator of the Brandon Shores Generating Facility, has announced its intent to retire the Brandon Shores coal-fired power plant in Anne Arundel County. Talon Energy has agreed to a reliability must-run with FERC to keep that power plant online until the project I'm presenting can be complete. I want to acknowledge that all of this overhead construction activity will occur on existing right-of-way. No new land is required for BGE's overhead transmission work. What is included in this work? PJM has directed BGE to construct several system upgrades to help maintain the reliability of the electrical grid after the retirement of Brandon Shores Generating Facility. This work includes the installation of 2 new substations, Batavia in Baltimore County and Solly Road in Anne Arundel County. This includes the upgrade or expansion of 3 existing substations, Conestone, Granite, and Grayston. It also includes 29 miles of new overhead transmission line activity on BGE right-of-way next to existing transmission lines. And finally, it includes the upgrade of 8 miles of existing transmission lines on existing BGE right-of-way. Councilman Marks, we heard you and we hear the community and lots of the customers that we've engaged. We have been asked what has been reviewed, what alternatives have been reviewed, and what routes have been reviewed. BGE carefully evaluated several alternatives to the proposed project for keeping the grid reliable. Project alternatives include the use of grid-enhancing technologies and battery energy storage systems. BGE concluded that there are no feasible alternatives to the proposed project. Likewise, neither PJM nor any independent reviewing agency has identified any feasible project alternative. Route alternatives. The utility carefully evaluated several route alternatives for the proposed project, including undergrounding. BGE concluded that the proposed route, which utilizes existing right-of-way, contains similar overhead transmission lines. This is the optimal route because it minimizes environmental, socioeconomic impacts and minimizes construction time. Alternative routes would result in longer transmission lines, higher costs, the need to acquire new right-of-way, larger community impacts, greater environmental impacts, and longer construction times, which would extend that reliability must-run contract I noted at the beginning. And as well, no independent reviewing agency has identified a superior route alternative. Outreach began in 2023 with planned outreach to state and local officials. Since outreach began, BG has been given the opportunity at numerous events, numerous meetings. We've hosted public open houses, town halls, and we've had the blessing and opportunity to sit at dining room tables to talk about this project, and we thank you for that time. As well, we understand that people want to be met in different avenues. We stood up a website, the goodenergyandprogress.com site, and it has recorded over 10,000 views as of April 1st. The RMR, you've heard that term a few times since I've been up here. The Reliability Must-Run contract is an agreement between Talon Energy and FERC to keep this power plant online until this work can be complete. This agreement comes to $15 million monthly, which would be in place from June of 25 through May of 29, subject to early termination or extension. Based on PJM's cost allocation methodology, Our current estimate is that a typical BGE customer, residential customer, would pay roughly $4.50 per month in RMR charges until this work is complete. Judge, thank you.
Thank you. I think next we'll go with PPRP, if you'll explain what that means.
I'm going to do this so I can make sure. Can you all hear me? If I can be loud, but I can be fast.
You need to be loud and slow.
I know. I tend to be fast. Okay. My name is Ginny Rogers, and it's GINNYROGERS. And as Judge Grace said, I work for the Power Plant Research Program, and that's PPRP, and it's part of Maryland DNR. I'm the project manager for this project, and what we do is coordinate the response to a CPCN application for 7 reviewing state agencies. And those agencies are the Department of Natural Resources, the Department of the Environment, Agriculture, Transportation, Planning, Commerce, and the Maryland Energy Administration. As Judge Grace pointed out, we have a fact sheet available to you all that gives you a lot more details about our review of this project. And if we run out of paper copies, that you can search PPRP projects under review, and you will find that fact sheet. So we filed our testimony and the supporting documentation on March 14th, and we came out in approval of this project. So we look at a number of different issues, and a lot of these, I'll list them below, and a lot of them are listed on our fact sheet. We look at biology, such as the impacts that the facility may have on natural resources, including trees, waterways, streams, and wildlife. We look at the noise impacts from the project. We look at visual impacts, including landscape buffers, and the aesthetic issues concerning the towers. We look at cultural resources, and we work with the Maryland Historic Trust on that. We look at public safety and transportation, including roads, highway access, and the impact on airports and any nearby residences. We look at the economic and fiscal impacts to the surrounding communities. And for transmission, we also look at EMF, as well as BGE already referenced, we look at the need and the cost of the project. So we get signatures from the Secretary of the Department of the Environment and the Department of Natural Resources, and we'll testify at the evidentiary hearing. We've already filed our conditions, but I want to emphasize, and I haven't said this at the other meetings, that we do listen to you all, and we have, I believe it's 15 days to modify our conditions based on responses to public comments. So that is something we can do if we do see a way to improve our conditions based on what you say. So I'm not sitting here and spending, this is the 3rd hearing on this project, my evenings for nothing. I do listen, and we are trying to think of ways that we can modify our conditions to better work with the public. So thank you.
Thank you. Can we pull up on the screen the Public Service Commission website again, please? Folks in this room, I'm sorry, you already saw me do this. The technology froze in the other room, so we're going to do this again, maybe. Okay, while we're waiting for that to come up, Commission's technical staff. Oh, you can go ahead and, Mr. Dean, you can park yourself there and just give me a moment. This is the Maryland Public Service Commission website. Hopefully folks in the other location can see this now. If not, they'll let me know and we'll do this a 3rd time. On the left side is a teal box that says case/mail log portal. It's there that you type in the case number for this case, which is 9748, and you can see all of the pre-filed written testimony, the application, everything there. If you'll scroll down. Here in the middle, under the tools section, is where you make a public comment or where you read the public comment that has been filed by others. in the middle under the tools section. And I should mention, there are also copies of the application, the original application, on file to be seen by the public at local county libraries. Okay, Mr. Dean, go ahead.
Hello, my name's Michael Dean. I'm one of the staff attorneys assigned to this proceeding. The technical staff is independent of the commissioners, and we evaluate filings and provide testimony in cases like this, and we make recommendations based upon the statute and our understanding of the case. We filed engineering testimony in this proceeding, and we recommended approval of the project as meeting the needs of the electric system. Thank you. And I appreciate everyone that's come out here and is making public comments on this.
Thank you. Office of People's Counsel?
Thank you, Your Honor. Can everybody hear me okay? My name is Michael Sammartino. That's spelled Michael-Sammartino, and I'm an attorney with the Maryland Office of People's Counsel. The Office of People's Counsel is an agency that's independent of the Public Service Commission, and we represent the interests of all Maryland residential utility customers in this proceeding. When I say all Maryland residential utility customers, I mean all customers in the entire state, not just those directly affected by this project. We filed informational testimony from an expert witness that we retained. That informational testimony does not take an opinion or a position on whether the CPCN should be granted or denied. It purely provides some information on some of the electric capabilities of the line that BGE proposed. We have yet to take a formal position on this project, and we are currently reviewing the filings submitted by the Power Plant Research Program and the Commission technical staff, and the position that we ultimately take will be informed by our review of the information from the company, and importantly, from all the comments and feedback that you provide here tonight, and then you provided in the various, the two other comment hearings. Public participation is very important and essential to the regulatory process. It vastly improves the process, and you all provide a very important perspective. So we thank you for being here, and we look forward to hearing what you all have to say. Thank you.
Okay. There are some other parties, and I don't think that they're here tonight, but I'm going to go ahead and let you know that the Sierra Club is a party to this case. Is anyone here from Sierra Club? Also a party to this case is Constellation Energy Generation for Constellation Energy Generation LLC and Constellation New Energy. Is anyone here from Constellation? Okay, those are other two parties to the case that are not represented here tonight. So that's the first part of the hearing where we provide information to the public, and now it's your turn. I'm going to call the names of folks who have indicated that they do want to speak tonight. I'm going to call them in this location first, and in order, hopefully. And when I call your name, please feel free to, we actually have 2 working microphones tonight, so that's wonderful. If you come to the podium and state your first and last name and spell it for the court reporter, please. First up is Jerry Withers.
Hello, my name's Jerry Withers. I'm going to spell my name Jerry, Withers. I'm a resident of Kingsville, and basically I'm totally against the upgrading and expansion of the power lines through Kingsville and other areas. Basically, it's a fire hazard and also a health hazard. There has to be other alternatives because, you know, we need the power, and from my understanding, the rates are going to go up, you know, through the roof, and it's going to cause a lot of grief for BGE customers. So there has to be other alternatives alternatives. Possibly the Brandon Shores plant, installing mini nuclear reactors, or running it on natural gas, things like that. But this is just a really bad plan, in my opinion. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Withers.
Right-of-way agreements that I seen don't make any mention of a second set of transmission lines as proposed for this Brandon Shores project. If the updated right-of-ways don't make mention of a second set of transmission lines, then I'm of the belief that this is ripe for the filing of a lawsuit in the circuit courts of Maryland for them to decide. BGE stands to make billions, with a B, from the electricity that will flow along this corridor for decades to come. I'm also of the belief that landowners have not been given the proper financial consideration for all the monies that BGE is going to make if this Brandon Shores project is approved. Frankly, the courts need to decide this too. BGE may have a right-of-way and updated right-of-way agreements in place, but that doesn't give BGE the right to do whatever the heck they want in these right-of-ways. Some of my colleagues will testify about EMF spillover pollution from these transmission power lines. We have neighbors that have recorded up to 90 times higher EMF levels than recommended for residential areas by the World Health Organization. And that's before BGE builds the second proposed set of transmission lines. Is it reasonable for our neighbors to be subjected to EMF levels approaching 200 times the recommended levels established by the World Health Organization with construction of the second transmission line? Numerous scientific studies point to an increased risk of childhood leukemia for kids living under these 230 kV transmission lines. There is still additional research going on because it takes decades to amass this research, but the data already published by WHO points to a tangible link between exposure to transmission lines and an elevated incidence of childhood leukemia. BGE and the bunk they publish on their website won't tell you this. I just did. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaka. Lynn Zink.
Hi, I'm Lynn Zink, Lynnzinink, and I have a visual document for you that I will be talking about. And so if you want me to begin while you're coming over too? Sorry about that. Thank you. Okay.
So when someone hands me something at a public hearing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at it while that person is providing public comment. I'm going to share it with a councilman next to me. And later on, I'm going to scan it in, and it's going to become public comment. So although you all can't see it now, you will be able to see it later on the commission website. It'll also be sent to all of the parties. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking time to hear all of us and what we have to say. I want to speak about historic Kingsville. There are over 50 properties that are within 1 mile to the power lines that come through the Kingsville area that are from the 1700s and 1800s. And on there is a list of some of the properties, and I put an asterisk next to the ones that are in the registry of the historic places, just to show you how historic our area is. And to add to that, when people are driving up Interstate 95, they see this huge sign that says Gunpowder State Falls Park and Colonial Village. People come from all over the world to see our beautiful Kingsville. And when they come to our area, they get to see the historic Jerusalem Mill Village, and this is where they get experiential activities. They get to step into the past and enjoy our beautiful area, only to see more tower lines that are going to be even taller, that are commercializing our historic area and just littering our skies with a bunch of power lines. And so I feel that these power lines, I oppose them. They are going to really ruin the aesthetic quality of our area. And one other quick comment that I would like to make off of this page, that was not on this page, is when someone had referenced the deeds and right-of-ways, and when it came to the original 1931, it does specifically state on there about a transmission line. The people who received in 1978, whatever they received with the easements, I even read the documents, and it's hard for me to understand, let alone any other person that doesn't have that experience. I know for a fact, even 79-year-old Anna, who signed one of those documents in 1978, a widow, I know that she would never have contemplated another set of transmission lines, more and more wires, and more EMF exposure, and commercializing our area. It would have never been contemplated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Zink. Harry Sanders.
My name's Harry Sanders, Harrysanders. I came to Kingsville in 1948. I was 7 years old. We live in a little farm. I'm still on that property. My folks were kind enough to give me a little piece of land, and I built a rancher at that time. 1983, I had a little group of people. We started a group called the Friends of Jerusalem Mill. And since that time, the state of Maryland, Harford County, Baltimore County, Friends of Jerusalem Mill, in those 40-some years, we've put millions of dollars into the Little Jerusalem Mill Village. Following up on what Lynn said, this type of project will have a tremendous impact on our village. And I do, Judge, I'll let you take a peek at this and just ask that the commission consider what they're doing to our little community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did you want for that to be something that I keep, or are you keeping that?
Can you get a picture of it and send it to you, or something like that?
Sure.
Or you can take a peek and then we'll take it on the video.
Okay. Did you get his testimony okay?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Folks, sorry, go ahead. In the other location, they were unable to hear Mr. Sanders because he wasn't speaking into the mic. So again, I'll remind you, you got to face towards me, not towards the audience. Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Rachel Ullman. Thank you. I'm just going to write your name on it.
Sure.
So
I'm
when
going to
it's-
give you this when I'm done as
Okay,
well.
when it's in the record, I just need to make sure that I'm not confusing you with someone else.
Perfect. My name is Rachel Ullman, RachelUllmann. I strongly oppose case number 9748. I'm a lifelong Kingsville community member. My husband and I were raising our 4 young children, ages 1 to 10, in our historic home, which is on the Maryland Registry. We live 100 feet from the Gunpowder Falls State Park. Our home was built in 1771. Talk about colonial, like Mr. Sanders. Our house is one of those beautiful places that people from all over the country come to see. This project threatens our community's historic nature. It includes great environmental risks, and it puts the public in danger, including my children. The addition of these massive power lines would scar our treasured landscape with visual pollution. Ms. Rogers, thank you for your report. I read it all. You mentioned tonight EMF. I only read one tiny little line in that report on human life impact. Your responses to all of the questions about the environmental impact on wildlife, the answer was yes to every one of them, that it would detrimentally impact the environment. We know this will also detrimentally impact the human lives in the next generation in Kingsville. During our extensive research as measly citizens, the most alarming part of this project is the link of EMF to childhood leukemia. That impacts me directly because my kids play soccer on the St. Stephen's School soccer field. That's underneath of these power lines that are about to be doubled. I'm also very concerned about the potential for wildfires because of my home's location to the state park. Kingsville has no access to public water. A fire would be devastating, just as it was for our friends, the Von Parises, whose historic home burned down to the ground in 2020, despite our good firefighters' best efforts. According to wildfirerisk.org, I've given you some paperwork just now, 99% of homes in Kingsville are at direct risk of ignition from adjacent flammable vegetation. You cannot allow this second set of overhead lines. California is undergrounding power lines because of the tragic deaths of 85 people due to transmission failures. Why not here? PJM, the very same grid operator, is installing 350 miles of underground technology. It's only a 3-by-5-foot trench. So I take great concern when BGE tonight said that they would use eminent domain if they underground the lines. It's a 3-by-5-foot trench. Installing outdated above-ground power lines increases our community's danger from wildfires and EMF exposure. Judge Grace, I said this to you before, we believe this project violates Maryland statute because of the lack of proper notification with full transparency to each adjacent landowner, because of the lack of immediate notification on the Commission's social media platforms, because of the recommendation of the governing body of Baltimore County. Thank you, Councilman Marks. Thank you to the county executive for her statement that came out this morning. And finally, the effect of the overhead transmission lines on economics, aesthetics, historic sites, aviation safety, and water pollution. It violates every one of those things. Finally, I want to express my deep disappointment with BGE and how they have missed the mark on public engagement. Zach Mitchell, Mr. Mitchell, you said at the April 9th PSC hearing that you met with community advisory boards. That's simply untrue in Baltimore County. I can confirm you never met with or reached out to the Greater Kingsville Civic Association, the Perry Hall Improvement Association, the White Marsh Callenton Association, and the Essex Middle River Civic Council. Your website, Good Energy in Progress, says that you would do those things. You have not. When I reached out to BG&E's Good Energy in Progress email, I asked about the format of this event tonight, how to get involved. The response was simply a link to the PSC's website. BG&E gave me no answers to my questions. BG&E's fact sheet still today online says that it's only a modification of transmission lines. The fact sheet does not disclose a second set of taller lines. And it's pretty funny that on the website it also says that there's a project video coming soon. That's been coming soon for a year. The FAQs also say they're coming soon. They have not been published. Tonight is the last opportunity for the public to verbally give comment to the PSC. It is shameful that BG&E has withheld information and purposefully misled the public during this critical comment period. Finally, I just want to say another point that you said tonight, the RMR is only going to cost $4 more on our bill. We will gladly pay that until eternity so that you don't build these transmission lines. I respectfully ask that you deny the case 9748. Thank you.
Okay. Folks at the second location, guess what? We can hear you. You're not allowed to clap either. We all follow the same rules. I don't know if you can see this location, but we have some signs being held up at this location quietly, and that's wonderful. Ms. Ullman, I'm going to make this, in addition, a part of your written comments, which will be available on the commission website. Patty Von Paris, are you done with this?
Excuse me, Your Honor, I'm hearing some feedback. I don't know if it's someone's phone.
The court reporter is getting some feedback. Are you still getting some feedback?
Not now.
Okay.
Not now, Your Honor.
All right. Hold on. Who was this one from? This is missing. Just give me one moment, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you, Ms. Von Paris.
Okay. My name is Patty Von Paris. It's PattyVonParis. I live in Upper Falls, and the power lines run right through our property. I want to share some information with you regarding the transparency or lack of transparency with the communication that we received from BGE on this project. In the past 15 months, we have received 5 letters and 2 postcards from BGE. The correspondence was mailed to or addressed to BGE customer or current resident. The postcards were addressed to Dear Neighbor. The way the mail was addressed, honestly,
just looked like junk mail with the way it was addressed. The first and second letters that we received, one in dated December 2023, second one was dated March 2024. They mentioned the closing of Brandon Shores and the need to build new substations in Baltimore County and Anne Arundel County, and they mentioned the modification of 35 miles of transmission lines on the existing right-of-way. The fact sheet, as Rachel said, the fact sheet on the website states the same thing. They are modifying, it's about modifying 35 miles of transmission lines on the existing right-of-way. The third letter we received doesn't mention anything at all about substations or transmission lines. It just refers to the project. The fourth letter we received informs the property owners that pre-construction survey stakes will be put on your property. Nothing about the construction, just that the pre-construction survey stakes will be placed. Finally, 15 months after the first letter, letter number 5 was delivered as certified mail, and I had to sign for it. It again was addressed to BGE customer. In that letter, BGE finally tells us what the project is, that they're going to construct a 29-mile new 230 kV transmission line within BGE's existing 150-foot wide right-of-way. It took 15 months for them to come out and clearly state what this project was. One thing they didn't mention in the last letter was that some of the towers will be taller, and they're adding 12 more transmission lines to what we already have. That brings the total to 24 230,000 volt power lines right next to our homes. To me, it's unacceptable. Based on the Maryland Public Utility Statute 7-207, I am opposed to case 9748.
Thank you, Ms. Von Paris. John Von Paris?
My name is John Von Paris, Johnvonparis. In 1979, in Denver, Colorado, Dr. Wertheimer and Dr. Leeper confirmed a link between childhood leukemia and the EMF coming from high voltage power lines. The same year, Mr. Black from BGE met with my father and wanted us to agree to an adjusted easement. Never did he mention anything about increasing the lines from 3 to 6 to 12 to 24. Never did he mention anything about the lines going from 150 each to 230,000, 150,000 each to 230,000 volts per line. Never did he mention anything about the industry-known study on EMF exposure and the link between EMF exposure from power lines to childhood leukemia. If my father would have known that, I am positive he would never have put his family at risk to be exposed to that kind of radiation. How many times have we heard the same thing from big corporations, only to discover years later that they were wrong and our children are sick? BGE claims on their website, the Brandon Shores website, that major health organizations find no concerns whatsoever with risks of EMF from high voltage power lines. Well, I disagree with that, and I want to address each one of the organizations that they mentioned. The EPA and the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization, an agency of the United Nations, classifies EMF fields from power lines as possible carcinogenic to humans based on limited evidence showing an association with childhood leukemia. That's from a quote right off their website, Your Honor. The National Library of Medicine, National Center for Biotechnical Information, a study in Oxford, India, in England. I'm sorry. I had to cut down a lot of my material, so I'm trying to squeeze this in. So I apologize, Your Honor.
I don't know if you've noticed, but I haven't been interrupting anyone, so go ahead.
Okay. The Childhood Cancer Research Group in Oxford, England, had a study July 4th, 2005, about childhood cancer in relation to distance from high voltage power lines in England and Wales. Their conclusions are as follows. There is an association between childhood leukemia and the distance from high voltage power lines. Their study indicates the risk of EMF exposure extends far greater than would have been expected from previous studies. Per their findings, children who lived as far as 600 feet from the power lines had relative risk of childhood leukemia. This is also documented in the British Journal of Cancer. The EMF Center in California, a nationally recognized expert organization regarding EMF exposure, had this to say. According to the EMF Center, the safe distance away from the harmful EMF exposure from power lines is 700 feet. Our distance, the new proposed distance from our house, is 100 feet from our house. And there probably are many other people up the line there that are even closer. The Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, the World Health Organization say if you're concerned about the health risks from EMF from power lines, they give you two options. You can increase your distance, or you can limit the time spent around the source. How in the world is anybody going to do that when these lines are on every second, forever, every day, every second of every day, forever? They can't. But that's their solution. The National Institute of Health, and the National Cancer Institute, and the American Cancer Society had a pooled analysis of 9 studies reported a twofold increase in risk of childhood leukemia among children with exposures of 0.4 UT microtesla or higher. On July 16th, 2024, I used a gas meter to do a reading of the power lines at our home. And the power lines, the reading was 7.32 UT microtesla. The EMF reading was very troubling to me and my family, and it was 18 times higher than the 0.4 UT link, quote unquote, danger zone that has been linked to childhood leukemia. I have right here, I have over 60, I have 59 from the National Cancer Institute related studies to cancer. A lot of it pertains to EMF exposure from high tension power lines, and it goes on. And Your Honor, this is from all over the country and all over the world. I've also done some other research where there is regulation now requiring, believe it or not, you cannot build in some countries like the Netherlands, France, the United Kingdom, it goes on, where they will not allow you to build high volume tension. I can't get a little bit upset about this, okay? So let me just catch my breath. These dangerous power lines next to child daycare centers, kindergartens, schools, and all that. There's regulation out there against these high voltage power lines to be built in that area, and or schools built next to the same. So it is all out there, Your Honor. I will submit all of this with my report to the Public Service Commission portal, but I'm very concerned about it. The community is. I appreciate you letting us comment on it today. And in a closing comment, Your Honor, there is so much information about guidance, safety guidance. One is the ICNIRP, Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection to Protect Humans. Wouldn't it make sense for BGE and other utilities, power companies, to provide that information to the people? It's sort of, they give us these, they put these lines in our backyard where children play, and we have no guidance whatsoever. We have to go find it about it on our own, and people are sick, and it's just very frustrating, Your Honor. Thank you for letting me testify.
Thank you, Mr. Von Paris. Dan Vitilio?
Hello, my name is Dan Vitilio.
Can you spell your last name, please?
V like in Victor, Vitilio. So I will not take more than 2 minutes for sure, but everybody else gave you a lot of good information. They made a few comments that it would be $4 more. I think everybody in this room would pay $8 or more, put it underground. This cannot, we can't have more wires. We can't have more exposure. So we don't care what BGE says it's going to take longer for construction to dig and put everything, take the wires that are up there now, put them underground, and call it a day. So I think everybody in this room, if you want to raise your hand, if you'll spend on that $4 to make your kids safe, and we don't care if it takes 10, 20 years. So how many people? I think everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vitilio. Kristen Sanders?
I'm Kristen Sanders, KRISTENSANDERS, and my father is the founder of the Friends of Jerusalem Mill, and I've lived in Kingsville my entire life, and I live several hundred feet from the existing power lines, and I'm a brain tumor survivor, and I was diagnosed in 1997 with a juvenile pilocytic astrocytoma, and I'm very concerned about these power lines and all of the health risks. I also live several hundred feet from the historic Jerusalem Mill Village, and we already have a very serious erosion problem, and we have pictures.
Sorry, can you keep, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, we have a very serious erosion problem, and we're on a 100-year floodplain, and I'd like to give these photos to you.
Yes, ma'am.
And I also have a Little Gunpowder Falls watershed characterization report that was prepared for the Baltimore County Department of Environmental Protection and Sustainability. And you can easily see that our area, the lower Little Gunpowder Falls, is all in red. And this shows the extreme erosion in our area. And we are on the Little Gunpowder Falls, which is also a very important tributary of the Chesapeake Bay. And I'd like to give you these copies also.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sanders. It looks like John Gunter. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Gunter, Jonathangunter. I live in the Fallston area, and a lot of people speak about the studies and everything else. I'm going to give you one true evidence that I have. My son was playing on his playground while these lines were overhead and was getting shocked daily. He had BGE come out. They go, there's nothing we can do. It's just going to be that way. Every time I've talked to them, they don't care. So adding more lines is just going to make it even worse for the kids that play in their backyards, for everybody else. Right now, I live about 100 feet from that line. When this new line comes in, I'm going to live about 35 feet from the edge of the lines. Imagine having that come into my house every day. I'm not the only one. I have my neighbors. And they all have kids, and they all have the same problems. BG says they've given us information. They haven't. Every time I've asked them for information, it's been, we'll get back to you. Or they don't call, or they don't email. When it came to these alternatives that they say studies show that can't be done or they're not feasible, I've asked for those multiple times. They didn't have them. This was the first night I've actually seen them put a slideshow up that has the alternatives. One of the main alternatives I was thinking about is the batteries. Putting power supplies at Brandon Shores, the 800 megawatts, and doing reconductoring of the current lines. They're doing it in Indiana, and it's going to cover up their coal plants that are closing. What's the problem with doing that here? It will cost less money in the long run because you'll get refunds and you'll get incentives back for it. It's able to work for the peak times, which is what this plant mostly covers, which is what this RMR is going to cover, is peak times. They say it's not going to work. It's not going to work their bottom line. Cost $1.1 billion to do this project. Then they have all the money that's going to continue to go into their pockets from the transmission lines. They don't want to do the batteries or reconditioning because it doesn't suit them. They don't care about the people that it's hurting. They care about that bottom line. That's why they reconducted it and put new poles in. They knew they were going to have to do this again. Every time they do this, it's just more money in their pocket. And it does not help the community. It does not help my kids from getting shocked over and over again. It does not help anybody except BG&E, PJM, and the bottom line. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gunter. Bill Clark.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. My name is William Clark, WILLIAMCLARK. My wife and I, excuse me, own a farm directly under the wires on Jerusalem Road in Kingsville. Our property backs up to the Gunpowder State Park. I wanted to try to cover 4 items briefly. First is a little bit about the history and the process. In 2008, I received this slide, a page, as part of a letter from BG&E. It shows the transmission line that was proposed at the time, which is the one that has been built there. And it shows another tower that's sort of a shaded gray to the side of it. And it says on the slide, it says, future capacity and ultimate use of right-of-way, long-range capacity. This project isn't brand new. This project's been planned since at least before 2008, when these slides came out. It's only recently that the people here have had a chance to review the application under consideration tonight, only since, I guess, it was filed in March of 24. However, this is actually a project that's been under development for over 17 years. A lot happens in 17 years. A lot's changed since the original line was even proposed that I think we need to bring into the discussion. So I think that it actually makes the current things that have changed have actually made this project antiquated and obsolete, even though it was modern in 2008. And I'll say why. Now it seems that suddenly Maryland ratepayers are being asked to hurry up and approve what seems to me to be an airplane under construction rolling down the runway. Even when Pennsylvania portion of the project is far from certain, with a lawsuit filed, as I understand it, from the Public Utilities Commissions in Pennsylvania, claiming that the PA ratepayers should not pay for infrastructure to be constructed that would transmit energy to be used in Maryland. Why should Pennsylvania ratepayers pay for infrastructure energy that they're never going to use? So, and ratepayers in Maryland are being held hostage by the RMR penalties, as we are blamed for public comments that merely question the design and safety of a once-in-a-lifetime project that, once built, can never be undone. Now, in the time of our new tariffs, in our world of tariffs that we suddenly are enmeshed in, there's a lot of components in this project that are likely to be coming from overseas if they haven't been built already. For example, the EMF, the shielding wires that are used in these on the transmission lines contain a lot of aluminum, I believe. Aluminum is a product that's already has a tariff on it from any imports. Most aluminum that is used in the United States comes from some other place. And so we don't really know the true cost of this project. We cannot know the true cost of this project right now because we don't even understand what the tariff policy will be. So, so when the project initially was proposed for $900 million, suddenly now it's $1.5 billion. Truly, there's no end in sight for what the final cost of this project will be. PJM knows their line is less than optimal technologically, as demonstrated by their own project, the Sue Green project that Councilman Marks mentioned, which is now under construction from Mason City, Iowa to Plano, Illinois, that will connect the wind energy produced in the MESO region in Iowa, it's not soup, to be shipped into the PJM RTO market area. It's a project that's jointly sponsored by PJM and the MESO RTO. That underground transmission project will transfer approximately the same amount of electricity as proposed for the Brandon Shores line in a hardened system. Hardened for weather and also from potential terror attacks. We didn't think about that 17 years ago when the current transmission line was built. These lines, those lines, the Sue Green lines, go under the mighty Mississippi, but we are told that our request for PJM to go underground here is too expensive. So they can do the largest river in North America, but they can't handle the little falls with the gunpowder? I'm not buying what PJM is selling, and the proof is in their own more up-to-date designs and projects that they're using for high priority projects that they are starting more recently than 17 years ago. We are getting the Edsel while Iowa gets the Tesla. Concern about electromagnetic field impacts on our human population Reviewing the application to the PSC, I could find one paragraph on EMF and no data presented on expected emissions exposure, either within or beyond the right-of-way that people like me who have BGE easements on their property will endure, and also on neighbors with homes built very close to the right-of-way where the second set of 12 lines would be built. When the EMF meter starts beeping in the red zone in the middle of the night in your bedroom, yeah, it gets scary. Apologies to the endangered sedge in the Gunpowder State Park, about which the application provides pages of information and data, but I would hope and expect the application would at least devote as many resources to human subjects on the impacts of the EMF emissions exposure as our neighbors, the critters, get in the proposal. In October 2022, and this is my last comment, a woman from Catonsville, in conspiracy with a gentleman from Florida, planned to attack multiple BGE substations, including Perry Hall and White Marsh, and Norrisville, Maryland, Harford County. Fortunately, an FBI informant reported on their plans, and the perpetrators were apprehended and prosecuted. The woman is now serving 20 years in a federal prison. Her accomplice was convicted February 5th and is awaiting a sentence for up to 20 years. Their plans to use Mylar balloons and and guns and ammunition to shoot at power substations on the grid right here in our community demonstrate the extreme vulnerability of the power grid right here in Baltimore County. We don't need to imagine the threat to power reliability and public safety that potential destruction caused by Mylar balloons on our substations may be at some point in the 100-plus year future of the Brandon Shores lines. It's already almost happened here. Right here in our community. Of particular concern is the proposed Batavia substation in Rosedale. That is planned on a location adjacent to the main East Coast rail corridor used by freight, Amtrak, and MARC trains, and also adjacent to the I-695 Baltimore Beltway. The impact of a terror event such as proposed as already attempted in Baltimore County, if that were to occur at the Batavia location, that wasn't addressed in the proposal that I could find. It's not hard. You need to think about things that could happen. I understand these are the protocols they have to fill out according to rules and such, but this is bigger than that. I don't think that maybe PSC doesn't have the parameters for public safety with respect to terrorism and stuff by now, even though we had the 2022 event. The impact of a terror event such as attempted on, if it were attempted at Batavia, was not addressed in the proposal. However, should an attack on that substation occur, impacts well beyond just bringing down the power grid may occur. Something like that may very well cause the Key Bridge type destruction, both with impairing both the essential railroad corridor as on the East Coast, as well as the Beltway transportation artery. For these reasons, I believe it is essential to design power infrastructure that will be hardened both for weather and potential acts of violence. Therefore, I also support the development and implementation of an underground power transition system. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Thank you. Dave Button? Folks at Columbia Gardens, we have 5 more people signed up here, and then we have 6 people there, so we're going to be moving to you soon. Thank you for your patience.
So my name's Dave Button, D-A-V-E-B-U-T-T-O-N. I live up in Harford County, have a farm up there, and the tower lines run through our property. And I think everybody here has already pretty much covered all the health issues that they're concerned about. And BGE has stressed out that everything is in their right of way, and it's not in their right of way. When you measure the EMFs coming off of it, it's well outside their right of ways as of right now. And when they double it, everybody's going to be living and sleeping in it if their house is anywhere near these power lines. And I'm just stressing the point that they're not in the right of way. I mean, their structures in the right of way, but their EMFs are at this time before they double it are way outside the right of ways. And I can tell you for myself, I'm not going to let them come on my property on the farm. And that's really all I have to say about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Button. Rebecca Powell. I think Ms. Powell might have just. Mary Ann Lisanti.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you for taking the time tonight. And it's Mary Ann, M-A-R-Y-A-N-N. Last name is Lisanti, L-I-S as in Sam, A-N-T-I, and I live in Harford County. And thank you for being here. You know, for industry and regulators, this project is very simple. The demand for energy is high, and we need more lines. That's why we have a regulatory process like this. However, the impact on residential homes does matter. The impact on people's lives matters, and that is what we are really here to talk about tonight. Many of the people that are in this room really don't have the background in transmission generation to read the Public Service Commission's volumes of documents to really find out what impact it really is going to have on their everyday life. I think it's important as you consider your decision that you realize this is a generational decision. And after this case is over, these folks go back to their home, and that impact will be with them for the rest of their lives and the lives of their children. I think it's important to also understand that this process gives the impression that the use of a right-of-way is unfettered. Anybody can use a right-of-way to do anything that they want. That's not necessarily what the law is in Maryland, and it should not be the case here. Because no one, no company, no person has the right to use their land or right-of-way in a manner that negatively impacts others adjacent to them. So let's focus on those residential properties. As a fact, high voltage power lines are incompatible uses to residential properties. Therefore, it is the duty of this commission and for you to establish, if you're going to approve this, conditions that protects these properties today, tomorrow, and in perpetuity. You must set conditions that mitigate the impact, protect the environment and the air quality, not only out in the right-of-way, but immediately adjacent to those residential communities. So thank you for being here tonight and taking the time to listen to the community.
Thank you, Ms. Lisanti. Ryan Naraki. I should have gotten that right.
It's a tough Polish last name. I appreciate it. For the record, Your Honor, I'm Delegate Ryan Naraki. First name is R-Y-A-N. Last name is N-A-W-R-O-C-K-I. I represent this area in Annapolis in the legislature. I represent District 7A with myself and my colleague Delegate Kathy Schlegel. I'm here on her behalf as well tonight. I want to add just a couple points. Obviously, there's been a lot of things said that I think are very important to consider, Your Honor, but Delegate Schlegel and I couldn't be any more opposed to this project for a number of reasons. And I've brought these things up not only in the community, I've brought them up to BGE, but I've brought these things up on the House floor in Annapolis as well, so it's on the public record there also. First of all, this entire project is a result of flawed policy in Maryland. when we ultimately, and we ultimately will, shut down the Brandon Shores and Wagner power plant, that'll be 8 power plants that we've taken offline in Maryland in a little over a decade. Currently, Maryland is importing 40% of their power. When we bring those power plants offline, we're probably going to be importing somewhere around 70% of our power. Why is that important? That's important because we're told by BGE, by others, by PJM, which I've visited with Delegate Schlegel, we've gone up there, we've observed the process that they go through there, we've learned all about the grid. We're told that this is done, this project needs to occur for reliability. Reliability for brownouts, blackouts, that sort of thing. If that's the case, if we're going to be importing 70% of our power at that point in time, it would only make sense to bury those lines underground, right? When you're importing 70% of your power, that's the whole state. We're opening up the whole state to a potential disaster if one of these lines goes down because of a hurricane, because of a large snow event, because of any kinds of issue like that. So I think for that reason, it should be buried underground. For other reasons, it should be buried underground as well. You know, much of this area is inside of an area identified by the National Forest Service to be at a substantial risk for forest fire. You know, others have spoken tonight about what happened in the Camp Fire in California. That resulted because of a high voltage power line that created that fire. 85 people perished because of that fire. We don't want to have that here in Maryland. We don't want that on anybody's hands, Your Honor. BGE, I know, doesn't want that. I know you don't want it, Your Honor. We want to make sure that we are protecting our communities and making sure that they're safe. I think it's important that we bury that line for that reason as well, because of the fire risk. I think that there are other reasons why we should consider. You know, there's obviously many health concerns that have been spoken about tonight. I won't talk about the EMF issue because we've heard about that at length. But what I will talk about with respect to health risk, because no one else has talked about this, is the issue of PFAS. Now, for anyone that doesn't know what PFAS is, they're forever chemicals, and they're carcinogens. And we are continually legislating in Annapolis, and we're continually doing things to limit PFAS. Well, PFAS is found in many of the insulating materials and other elements that are used in high voltage power lines. So we're going to have risk to cancer because of EMF exposure, and also potentially an increased risk to cancer because of PFAS exposure. I think that is incredibly important, that we should be considering that as well in this process. We're doing everything we can in Annapolis to limit PFAS. We should be doing that here as well. Burying the grounds again, I believe, would have a substantial impact in limiting that type of exposure from a known carcinogen, a forever chemical that doesn't go away. This is also an issue of fairness. You know, my community, the communities that I represent, are the ones that are unfairly having to bear the burden of, frankly, flawed policy that's coming from Annapolis. How many more power lines does this community have to bear to support, you know, power needs in other parts of the state? It's not fair. We should be spreading this out. I said this on the House floor. We should be looking at ways to spread these issues around the state. We just passed a bill in Annapolis that will also require the ability to put utility scale solar on 7,000 acres in Baltimore County in agricultural land. Most of that land happens to be in areas that I represent, like Kingsville. And when you put utility scale solar in, and that, by the way, Your Honor, is by right. State law says that Councilman Marks and the county council and others will have no ability to stop that. That will be by right. When you put utility scale solar in, you need more power lines. So we're going to have more power lines for large solar projects. There's already several that have been proposed in Kingsville. And now we're going to have additional power lines for this large Brandon Shores, you know, power issue. It's not fair, Your Honor. It's not fair to this community to continue to have to bear these burdens. We've heard here tonight others that have experienced increased risks for cancer. I think for that reason alone, we should be looking to do everything we can to mitigate those kinds of exposures, and I think that's bearing those lines, Your Honor. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. All right, we're turning now to the folks who have signed up at Columbia Gardens. Can you please bring Columbia Gardens up on the screen? While we're doing that, the first person to sign up is Samuel Von Paris.
Judge, he left.
Thank you. Greg Uhas?
Yeah, my name's Greg Uhas. It's Greguhas. I live in the Kingsville area. I don't have a lot of notes, so I'm going to speak from my heart. Okay, I've heard a lot of testimony, a lot of facts, which I agree with. Uh, I don't believe this is a good plan. I think there's alternative methods. It may have been brought up about the remote nuclear power plants that could sustain the energy crisis. Um, I'm going to go back a little bit in time. If you go back and look in the early days, people used to travel to see the countryside. And such, that's what we had in Kingsville. When you crossed over the Gunpowder River by the Big Falls Inn and you came up the road there towards Raphael, where now the monstrous rusty power lines are put. Um, Prior to that, there was a farmer that used to have a produce stand there. Um, and when you crossed there and you came up over the river and you saw the produce stand, you kind of felt like you were in the country. And I think that's what a lot of people like to do is, you know, take a country ride. Kingsville's changing, and especially with the advent of these power lines and such. I have property that is roughly 400 feet. My home is 400 feet from an existing power line. Um, my garage is maybe 50 feet from the power line. I'm concerned about the fires that could happen. Um, Kingsville Fire Department, where are you going to get the water from? Everybody out there is on wells. If there is a fire, I think my property is going to go up. I do farm that land. Aesthetically, it's pleasing to me to see cornfields and soybeans and all the flowering trees that I've planted over my whole time there. If you go back when this meeting first opened here, everyone stood up that were opposed to it. And Your Honor, I think we need to take a look at that. How many people just don't want it for whatever reason? Now, there might be 100 people here, but how many people are not aware of this? Or how many people couldn't make it to this meeting that could be opposed to it? So I think there's power in the people and their feelings. This past week, Easter weekend, I had my family over, and they all want to come to Pops because we can take a hayride. We can go enjoy the property. But my grandchildren, they wanted to ride their Power Wheels over by the power lines. And I had to tell them, no, stay away. And right away, they're, why, Pop? Why can't we go over there? And what was I going to tell them? That you could die? Because I've recently heard about the effects of these EMFs on children's leukemia. I had to tell little Summer, little Wyatt, little Nathan, don't go over there. And they're like, why, Pop? And you know what? Do I have the heart to tell them that you could die from that? And then they have more questions. So a lot of people live a little closer to these power lines than I do, but I am affected by it. The lines that are there now going through my property, I'm probably expecting they're going to want to put more lines there, which we don't want. When the weather is bad, I can hear these lines humming if it's misty out. So there is problems. And learning about the EMFs and the effects on humans, it's not good. There are alternatives. I don't think that BGE is going to take the expensive route in business. You take the cheaper route. And I think that's what's happening. You know, when, as I said earlier, you crossed over into the Kingsville area right there at Raphael where the substation is, and these big, rusty, ugly towers are there. My grandkids even say they're the monsters. It's unsightly. It is. And you're going to add more, and you're going to add more lines. I feel for the people that live even closer. As the Bon Paris had spoke and said, the effects, and they've taken the Goss meter and had readings that it far exceeded the norms. So listening to, you're supposed to be 700 feet away. Well, my house is not. It's 400 feet away. And I've lived there a long time. And I'm sure the effects probably have had an effect on me or my family. Your Honor, I'd like you to just consider from my heart what the people feel in regard to these power lines. I believe there is alternatives. So I want to thank everyone that's come out and given their testimony, and I just hope that this can be shut down. It is an effect on the people that we don't want. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Uhas. Linda Huber?
Hello, my name is Linda Huber, LindaHuber, and I have lived in the Upper Falls almost all my life. We live on Sherwood Road, and Sherwood Road and our property bumps up to the backyard of John and Patty Von Paris. The other side of Sherwood Road runs along the Kingsville ballpark where hundreds of kids and adults come to enjoy sports and hiking and things like that. I wanted to talk because with all my heart, I love and feel so blessed to be a part of the Kingsville Upper Falls community. Um, by the way, the gentleman who just spoke about the produce stand, those are relatives of mine who had that stand, and he's right. It just looks so horrible when you go to the end of the road and see all those awful towers. Um, to get to Sherwood Road, I have to go down Franklinville Road. I'm also a teacher at St. Paul's Lutheran School, so every day I drive down Chapman Road to Franklinville. But to get to Sherwood Road, I have to drive under the power lines. And my brother Pete made an interesting observation of how the new power lines are more to the left of the property there. No one knew that they were making room for the second row of power lines. But I truly care about our community. Um, I I also worry about the health effects. Where we live, I can sit at my kitchen table and look out the sliding glass door, and there's a big tower and all the ugly lines that run through the sky. When I want to look at a sunset or look at the moon, there's wires running through that beautiful sight, otherwise beautiful sight. Um, so I just want to oppose this new plan to run wires. I also really would like to say something about the underground wires. My father's from Estonia, and when my Estonian relatives came over for the first time after they got their freedom, they were so surprised at all the wires because back in Estonia they put them all underground. And I don't know why we haven't done that in the US, but I certainly hope and pray that the right thing will be done and there will be another way to preserve the beauty and history of our beloved Kingsville Upper Falls.
the court reporter got everything that Ms. Huber said, but when you're holding that microphone up, feel free to hold it right up in front of your face so that we can make sure that we get everything on the record.
Judge, this has been, can you repeat that? You were coming through very faint.
So I think we got everything that Ms. Huber said on the record, but I guess just like this microphone, that hopefully you can hold the microphone like in front of your face and kind of directionally pointed to you so that we can make sure the court reporter gets everything on the record. Go ahead, Mr. Radcliffe.
My name is Brian Radcliffe, Brian Radcliffe. First, I'd like to thank Judge Grace and the Commission for this opportunity to tell you why this project should be canceled. My wife and I live on 12448 Jerusalem Road, and the back of our property borders the Gunpowder State Park. Over that park property is a BGE right-of-way. When I built the house in 1985, there were what I call erector set towers. They had 3 power lines on it. I was aware at that point, but I had no idea what was to come. Our house is about 300 feet from those 3 lines. 8 years ago, BGE erected what I call monster poles with an additional 3 lines, or a total of 6, which would be an increase of 100% transmission. Unfortunately, for our family, these new poles would be closer to our house. Now the lines are less than 200 feet from our house. When the contractors were marking the location of these new poles, I asked, why were the towers put on the east side of the existing line and not on the west? I was told a second set of lines would be installed within 10 years on the west side. He was correct. This plan was a done deal in 2018. Who knew? A year later, BGE placed 6 additional lines on the poles for a total of 12 lines carrying current close to our house. This is a 300% increase from what was there in 1985. This new project, if approved, will add a second set of poles with 12 additional lines. This will be a 700% increase since 1985. You've heard about the studies showing a link between high power lines and cancer. I don't know, but I can tell you that my bedroom and my daughter's bedroom face the power lines, and we both developed multiple sclerosis. If you take a look on the MS website, it's believed that MS is caused by environmental factors. Did the exposure to EMF cause our MS? I don't know, but I can tell you that there's no family history of MS. I hope you'll stop this project, and if not stopped, I feel you should force BG&E to bury the transmission lines that are located less than 1,000 feet to a home or an athletic field. This should include the existing lines that are already in place. Burying the lines would cut into BGE profits. It seems that's why this safe option of burying the lines is not available. I was surprised no one has mentioned that the FAA reviewed this project and on April 8th announced that the 11 172-foot towers in the Falston Airport environment would be a hazard to aviation navigation. Please make a decision based on safety for the people and communities that will be impacted by this project. Don't make it based on political beliefs. I hope you'll deny this intrusion on our community, and thanks again for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Radcliffe. Claudia Comer or Connor?
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Claudia, Claudia, and my last name is Correa, Correa. And me and my husband opposed to case 9748. I think that it has been clearly outlined the health concerns, and I was very surprised to see in the document that we were given when coming into the room that there was nothing talking about health or, any health, the health department, assessing and validating the safety of this project. Also, I echo the lack of transparency that BG had in regards of the scope of the project. The business case might seem that they're looking at the economics and the profit, that they will have versus really what is going to be the impact to the health of the people in the community that will live near to the power lines. Um, I do believe that the innovation is there. We see it every day, and I can't believe that by listening to the testimony of others before me, I can't believe that after many years, there's no innovation that we can have or we can get from even other countries to protect the health of the people living in the community. So I thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to talk about this and to hear us our concerns. Definitely, we don't agree with this project, and we believe that there are alternatives to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Correa. Alex Palmatier.
Thank you guys for hearing me out. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I'll admit I wasn't all that prepared with notes before coming here, but when they handed out this packet, I started looking at it, and I'm just wondering, listening to the testimonies, how many lives is this going to cost? Everybody's talking about all the effects of the leukemia and the other forms of cancer that these people are getting by living to these power lines. And as I was looking through this packet, I noticed that it says the DNR has identified all of these species that are going to be affected, and it lists their status. Let's see. There's 3 on the rare, threatened, and endangered watch list. There's threatened, rare, endangered, 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 threatened, and candidate. And then it says it's going through multiple areas where bald eagles are nesting. There was one gentleman here that said that his child was getting like shocked or electrocuted from the smaller power lines. What's going to happen to that kid when they put up the bigger power lines? I mean, if that's not enough to shut this whole project down, what's it going to take? If BG&E has already said, "Oh no, it's safe, it's safe." Well, they told my grandfather asbestos was safe, and he didn't have nothing to worry about, and they contracted mesothelioma because of it. They told everybody that Roundup was safe, and they had nothing to worry about. And then they found out it caused non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. They told all the Marines at Camp Lejeune that they had nothing to worry about, and all their sicknesses were fine. Till it was revealed that the faulty water tanks in the base were causing cancer and other life-threatening injuries and illnesses. What else is BG&E not telling us? I mean, like I said, if the fact that these kids are getting cancer because of the stuff that's being emitted from these poles and these lines and from the pieces parts of the lines themselves, Like, what else is it going to take? That's it.
Mr. Palmatier, can you, before you put the microphone down, can you spell your last name for the court reporter, please?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I forgot to do that. Palmateer.
Thank you. Columbia Gardens, is there anyone who wanted to speak who didn't sign up? Now, you're definitely going to have to spell your first and last name since we don't have you signed up.
First name Sherry, Sherrie. Last name Palmatier, Palmateer. And I oppose these lines. I spent a good portion of my life as a foster parent in Baltimore County protecting children. And when you hear the risk to children of cancer, I can't even believe they would even want to go through with these lines. Where my job is, I'm a youth minister, and you know, when I hear the kids at St. Stephen's School on the soccer field are getting the shadows of these this radiation coming over them, and they're at risk for cancer, and they want to make it worse. I just completely oppose this, and for all people who live close to these lines. And as my son said, you know, they told my dad that he would be safe at his job, and he died so that we could go on vacation. And they told my grandpa in the military that he was safe, and he also died of stomach cancer from the stuff they exposed him to. So I hope that we don't expose any more children or adults to any other dangers of cancer.
Thank you, Ms. Palmatier.
Thank you very much for allowing us all to speak tonight.
Sir, could you
My name is
please?
Doug Fair. Can you hear me?
Can you please?
My name is Doug Fair, Doug, Dougbeher. I want to just make a note, listening to everybody tonight. What really struck me was that every single resident who spoke was opposed to this. Every single person was opposed to this. And I also would like to add, I guess to reinforce what some folks were saying, that this looks like a golden opportunity for BGE to do the right thing. And that's just not to bury these lines, but to bury the existing lines, to get everything underground for all the reasons that were said before. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bear.
That's it, Judge.
Folks from Columbia Gardens, you all have been the epitome of courtesy, and I thank you for that. I'm going to turn now to folks here. Anyone who didn't sign up and wants to speak tonight? Councilman, do you have any additional? Oh, I'm sorry. We have a taker in the back. She's on her way down. State and spell.
Sherry Eldridge, SherrieEldridge. Thank you. I wasn't prepared to speak today, but I would like to say that when my children were younger, to be in the field under the power lines, the pole is directly out my window. And it is, someone said before, visual pollution. But my children also would vibrate when they were younger, if they were held or if they were on the ground and you would touch the top of their head, kind of like a cell phone vibrating. So where that's coming from, but it does happen. And the lines are, like everybody says, about 300 feet from my house, from my bedroom window. And now with the new pole coming up directly, the easement where the pole is directed, there's about 10 houses that, in planning with the original pole, it's directly in the middle of the easement, directly in the middle of the 10 houses. If it could have just been moved up the hill and hidden in the trees. But now with 2 poles, we are, and a lot of neighbors, Kingsville is, you move to Kingsville, you stay in Kingsville. There's a lot of older people that could not make it today that would be here to oppose this. So we stand together in opposition of this. There has to be another way. There has to be another way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eldridge. Yes. Will you please state your name and spell it for the court reporter?
My name's Julia Glock, Julia-Glock. I am a lifelong resident of Kingville. My mom also a lifelong resident of Kingsville, still living there, right behind our previous speaker. BGE, the cost of this project is measured in dollars and cents, but for the families that live in Kingsville and Upper Falls and all the other areas around there under the power lines, the cost of this project is measured in the health of their children and the impact these monster towers will have on our neighborhood forever. It's not always just the dollars and cents. My mom had cancer, and we lived there since the 70s. She got cancer in the late 80s. Several other residents, Sherry, both of her parents had cancer. There was several neighbors that were right there in that same evening, also had cancer. 3 have passed since then. So I remember the humming wires. I remember the vibrating heads. I remember all of that growing up, and then them putting up more lines. I live in Kingsville. I live over on Franklinville Road across from the Von Paris farm, and I have children and grandchildren that are always outside playing in the yard, and it worries me. And I would like to know if you would move under a power line, or any of these other folks here that work at BGE, would you move your family over there? I don't think so. I'm just saying, for all of us that live there, it's lowering our house value because people will not want to move into our neighborhood because of those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Glock.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing us. My name is Mary Farrell. I was raised in Perry Hall, and I now live in Falston. Behind me are 2 power poles. I'm going to be getting a 3rd one, but what really bothers me is Falston Airport is my next door neighbor. I was hoping that there would have been somebody who was really trained that could speak on this, but since it hasn't really been mentioned, this concerns me. I watch the planes land. I watch the planes land over my church, St. Mark's in Falston, and I always worry, are they going to kiss the steeple as they're going down? We have been told that these power poles are going to be higher. No one has really addressed what is happening there, and that's my main concern. I do not want to see an accident happen because of these higher poles that are going in. I think that is life that we need to ascertain right now and how they will be safe and how no one will be harmed by the higher poles and what the pilots have to go through. Thank you.
Ms. Farrell,
Farrell.
will you spell your last name,
Oh, I'm
please?
sorry. F like Frank, A-R-R-E-L-L.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Marks.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Your Honor, for the professional way you conducted tonight's hearing. I want to also acknowledge Bradley Lang, who works for my staff. Thank you for coming, Bradley. Thank you to all who spoke tonight. We often hear a lot about apathy in government. Tonight we saw a community that is just the opposite, energized in opposing this project in its current form. We also hear a lot about polarization. We have had unanimity on this issue. Doug Baer mentioned not one resident spoke in opposition, and in fact, the executive and legislative branches of government in Baltimore County, Republicans and Democrats alike, have voiced concerns with this project and asked for an analysis to see if it can be done in a different way. Again, I want to thank all those attending tonight. Just to very briefly summarize what we heard tonight, many speakers talked about the impact of this project on public health, also on safety, including the possibility of fires. Mr. Clark mentioned the vulnerability of these structures to terrorist activities. Delegate Naraki brought up a very interesting point about equity. I thought that was very interesting. Numerous speakers talked about the impact, particularly on the historic Kingsville community. And Mr. Radcliffe, I want to thank you for bringing up the impact on aviation facilities. I again urge the Public Service Commission, if this project moves forward, to please consider conditions and modifications. All of us understand the need for power in Maryland, but I think most people here respectfully urge that this project be modified in its current form. Thank you again to everyone for coming, and again, Your Honor, thank you for the way you conducted this hearing.
Folks, when I look up courtesy in the dictionary, it's you people. We've been here a long time, and a lot of you guys got here early. I appreciate you, every one of you. I appreciate everyone at Columbia Gardens. Thank you for your time. We can go off the record.